What comes to your mind when you think of Cuba? Colorful vintage cars, dreamy beaches, people dancing salsa in the streets? Cuba used to be a dream destination, but today the country is facing challenges that feel almost impossible to overcome. The headlines are anything but dreamy.
So this is our very first morning here in La Havana. I am a little bit nervous, to be honest, because you read a lot of headlines right now. You read about the food shortages, the electricity outages, and about the gasoline crisis, most importantly. I wonder what it's really like to be in Cuba right now, and we will explore that today. I hope that we can talk to some people to further understand what it's like to live here, but also to further understand this entire crisis, because we already booked some tours, we already booked some buses, so apparently you can still do things. There is still some gasoline available somehow, but obviously very limited, and also the prices are extremely elevated right now.
It feels like Cuba has been left on its own. Political tensions and the US embargo make everyday life incredibly difficult. So what remains of the Cuba we felt onto our imagination in 2026?
So the challenge of today is to first exchange our euros to Cuban pesos. I think we gotta do that on the black market here. We just don't know where to look yet. And then the second challenge is to get an eSIM or a SIM card. We need internet access somehow. The third one is to explore the touristic side of La Havana with a Cuban. And then lastly, I would love to talk to Cubans to understand life in Cuba a little bit better. I think that's the most important part of this day today, because it's always extremely different to just be here as a tourist and then to also understand the local point of view a bit better. Let's start with the first one, to exchange our euros into Cuban pesos. Let's just keep walking through the streets and see if we can find someone who will exchange our euros at a good rate. We keep walking through La Havana. So far, nobody has approached us to ask us if we want to change money. I expected it to be easier, to be honest. I thought if you walk around the center, there would be lots of people, but it could also be that it's still quite early. We are here at 8:30 now. We are in front of the Capitol building, which is a beautiful area, very well maintained. And this is also a place where you can see why people keep saying that Cuba is stuck in the 50s. You can see all of these beautiful cars here in the background. There are some bigger ones, some 4x4 cars. I think they are being used as some kind of public transport. And yeah, we'll just keep walking around the city and hopefully soon be able to have some pesos. We just passed by this very small supermarket here, but it definitely surprised me, because here you can absolutely find everything. You read about the food crisis here in Cuba and you just wouldn't expect something like that, or at least I didn't. However, you gotta take a close look at the prices, and that's the problem. Even though maybe here in Cuba you could get probably everything you want, it's not accessible for Cubans. Cubans don't have a very high salary. We just looked up the prices in there. They are more expensive than in Europe, for example. We just saw a little bit 100 grams of ham, for example, of Spanish ham for €4. That's elevated, especially considering from what I've heard about the salaries here, which are about $10 to $22 for most Cubans. A place like this is just not accessible. These things you can find in there, they are being imported by people, by the owners of the store probably. I'm not quite sure yet how this works exactly, but I'm going to figure that out.
So that girl in the background just now was the person I was looking for. She approached me, asking me if I needed help with anything, and then took me into a house where I could exchange my euros into Cuban pesos at a very good rate. The problem with exchanging money is that at the banks, they will give you really bad rates. On the black market, you will get the best rates, but of course, you'll also always risk being fooled.
We made it. Challenge 1 is done. We finally have Cuban pesos. There's just a few of them. We actually have 28,000 Cuban pesos. We just exchanged our money. Luckily, we found someone on the street who was approaching us and she helped us. So she took us to one place. It was a normal home that we entered. Feels a bit strange, to be honest, not going to lie. It's just not usual in Europe or most places in the world probably to enter a house, leave your bills there and then get an exchange rate of the black market. But anyway, we made it. We are finally able to pay things. And I also have an answer already, I think, on how Cubans survive. I just said it before, Cubans earn a very low salary. And you'd be like, how is that even possible to pay for your bills, to pay for food? But this girl that was approaching us, when she exchanged our money, she asked us for 6,000 pesos. So I believe that Cubans are quite well known for looking for opportunities to make money on the street. It happened to us a couple of times already. People showed us a market, for example. This morning there was one man, he took us to a market and then he was like, do you have some money? I want to buy milk. And we gave him some money. So people do that a lot here. Right now we were approached by a tour guide who offered us a tour here in La Habana, but also a tour to Viñales. So people just keep approaching you, they see you, they recognize you as a tourist, they see their opportunity to make money, and I think it's fine. I mean, it's like a service they offer you. We would have never found that house to exchange our euros right now, so I'm glad we met this girl and she was very helpful. And we have now the house marked in our map, so if we need to exchange more money, we know where to go. And it was actually a very good exchange rate. 1 euro was 570 pesos, so that's the current exchange rate. Keep in mind though that it can increase or decrease as well. We are ready for challenge number 2, which is the SIM card. We really need internet connection. It's a bit annoying to not be connected, and the Wi-Fi here is also not working that well. For those of you following me, you probably know I usually travel with an eSIM, but here in Cuba, eSIMs still don't exist. Actually, they also don't have internet for that many years yet. So in general, the internet connection here is also not the best. We just asked in a hotel if there is a place nearby where we can get a SIM card, and he told us there is one here. There is a phone store of Cuba Cell here nearby, which we are going to search for now.
And again, walking through the streets, continuously asking people for directions and a bit of trial and error led us to Etixa, Cuba's one and only mobile phone service provider.
We found a place. I hope we can get our SIM card here. We were asking like 3 or 4 different people. They were leading us towards this communication store. It's the official store here in Cuba. So if we can get a SIM card here, I think it will be hard to get it anywhere. But we just asked and he said we have to wait in line. So we are now waiting in a line in front of the communication store, and I hope we won't have to be here for hours. And I've got my SIM card. If you are ever looking for a SIM card store in Cuba, look for Xtasa. It is the only SIM line or phone line you can find here in Cuba. There used to be Cuba Cell, but now they are put together and it's Xtasa now. So just so you know. But it is definitely quite expensive. I paid 25 euros for 10 gigabytes and it will last me an entire month. I'm not going to stay for an entire month, but 10 gigabytes was the best option for me. Anyway, the line was quite annoying. I think we were there in total 45 minutes, and you definitely will need to bring a passport and several credit cards. We tried 3 and only one of them worked for whatever reason. So just so you know, if you are not managing to get it because you forgot your passport or your credit card is not working, you have to wait in line again. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Waiting in lines here, by the way, is nothing that rare. We've seen that before on a bank. There were so many people outside in front of the bank waiting, and they told us they were waiting for their salaries to get paid. So yeah, I think lining up here in Cuba is quite normal. We've also heard about lines in front of gas stations. Haven't seen that yet, but we'll probably see that while we are traveling through here as well. Gracias. We are spending a few pesos and it's time to eat something. There's lots of street food here, so I was curious to eat something. I think it's pork in there, bread with pork. Está bueno. It's really just bread with pork and a bit of salt. It's good, I like it. It's just nothing I've never eaten. But yeah, a good snack to go for 500 pesos only.
After eating, it was finally time to explore the touristic side of La Habana.
La Habana is also a Chinatown. There's an interesting history behind that, and that is that in the 50s there were a lot of Chinese coming here and migrating here into La Habana. They were mostly Cantonese. And they migrated here to build the railway that still exists until today and it still functions. I can't get over this architecture here. There are so many absolutely stunning squares and buildings in general with so many details. There is so much potential here in the city, it's incredible. It is so beautiful. I've never seen so much colonial architecture in one single city. So yeah, La Habana is stunning. It's like nobody can deny it. Yes, it does need some maintenance for sure, but it is super beautiful. It is hard though to move around, to be honest, because you will get stopped all the time by people, by Cubans who are telling you to go this way or that way and want to show you around, always asking for money afterwards. Keep that in mind. Don't just go with anybody because you will be spending a lot of money by doing that. It's natural that they show you around and you pay them for that. That's perfectly fine, but as I said, there are so many people approaching us right now. It's actually hard to follow our plans and to not get distracted along the way. We are trying to find out more about the touristic places now here in La Habana, and I would love to do a tour in one of these vintage cars. So let's see if we can find a good offer somewhere. We are about to do the most touristic thing in La Habana, but that's also part of the challenge. So let's get into one of these beautiful pink vintage cars and do a 1-hour tour through La Habana. Thank you. This car we are currently in is from the year 1957, and we just heard that they have like places here where they can repair the cars, but in some cases they even manufacture the parts that they need. Like they won't be original, but manufactured by hand by people from Cuba. In the case that nothing is possible like that, then they have to import them from the United States.
No, poco turismo. Poco turismo.
¿Por ahora por las noticias ahora o ya se estaba bajando de antes?
Se ha ido un poco deteriorado desde el COVID, ha ido disminuyendo hasta hoy.
Okay,
Producto a las carencias,
sí,
problemas de bloqueo económico con el
Sí.
petróleo, Venezuela.
sí. Bueno,
Se
entonces
ha ido
ahora...
encareciendo las cosas y el turismo se ha ido un poquito.
We are doing a little stop now here on the Plaza de la Revolución. You can see the face of Camilo Cienfuegos here behind me, and over there the famous face of Che Guevara. And this square is a huge and enormous square, incredibly big and well famous for these two faces. It's also a famous tourist spot, which is why we stopped here. But I like this tour so far, it's very interesting. We are learning a lot. We are getting a lot of information about La Habana and Cuba in general. Also a little bit about life here and the difficulties here, so it's very interesting so far. You pay per hour, by the way, so the more hours you want to take the car, the more you pay, of course. Parecen como si están cayendo ahora.
Se están cayendo mucho porque mucho abandono.
Ajá. Pero siguen gente allá viviendo ahí,
Siguen
¿no?
gente viviendo, sí. La ciudad de La Habana, catalogada la ciudad de las columnas, de los portales. 1 millón de columnas para resguardarse del sol y de la lluvia. Pero donde vea un espacio en blanco, sí, es porque el inmueble se desplomó. Muchas disculpas por la basura, que hay mucha recolección de basura acumulada en muchos lugares.
Ahora por el tema de gasolina.
Por el tema de gasolina.
We are back from our tour and it was very interesting. We learned a lot. It was 1 hour packed of information about Cuba, about La Habana, and also a little bit about life here in La Habana. I would definitely say we achieved challenge number 3. We did experience the touristic side of Cuba with a Cuban. And now it's time to further dive into challenge number 4, which is to get to know how Cubans really live and how the sanctions and the entire situation currently impacts daily life of Cubans. We touched a little bit on that in the car already, but I'm not yet satisfied. It's only partially touched, I would say. So let's dive a little bit deeper in that topic, and maybe we can even enter some buildings and actually see how Cubans live. Just by walking through the city, you can definitely tell that the city itself has a lot of potential. We are still in old Havana, that's in the heart of La Habana, and there are lots of very old colonial buildings with a lot of history, and then there are some areas like this one here that's probably a government building, I suppose, areas that are in general very well maintained, but then there are also a lot of places that are literally ruins. You can see here behind me there is a building that has been falling apart probably quite some time ago. It's a ruin, and even buildings in the background, like wherever you go, you can see the buildings are beautiful in general, but not maintained. So unfortunately they lose a lot of their charm. We are taking a taxi which is electric. It's a tricycle and they are quite typical here. You see them basically everywhere. And I think that's probably the most affordable way to drive through the entire city. We are driving to a building now that I think we will be able to enter. And I think it's a building that symbolizes a lot of contrast here in La Habana. Which is why I want to go there. So I wanted to come to this specific building here because this is a building created in the Soviet Union era. It looks typical for that era. It's nothing beautiful or anything, but it is right in front of the Malecon, the road right in front of the waterfront here in La Habana. So they have a stunning view. But then next to it, on this side, there is a luxury hotel. This hotel is rather new, rather modern, and it is the complete opposite to this building, which is a normal building. People actually live in there. So that is a huge contrast that you can find here in La Habana. And it is definitely not the only one. I honestly was expecting to see a lot of old cars here, or more old cars than modern cars. I was expecting to see a lot of garbage from what I've heard in the news, and from what I've heard in the news I also expected to see way less cars than we actually see here. However, there are a lot of new cars here in La Habana as well. And then we've heard also that the traffic has gone down ever since the gasoline crisis started about 1 month ago. But yet I still feel like there are quite a lot of cars. I mean, what we hear in the news is that Cuba is about to collapse, and it doesn't feel like that. But I also have to say that I am seeing the tourist point of view. We haven't seen any electricity outages yet, so I'm not sure if we are just seeing the bright picture of La Habana right now. That's probably the case, which is also why I want to dive way deeper into the local life. And actually we managed to enter one of the old houses in La Habana and learn more about local life, but honestly, I wanted to finish challenge number 4 as well, but I'm not going to do that in this video because I think that deserves its own video.
Curiosity has led me into the homes of strangers. Strangers with big, kind, open hearts. People who truly deserve the best. But what I saw inside, and more importantly the stories they shared with me, were shocking. And those stories deserve a video of their own.